Gotta treat every move made like the final. I won by a mile. Nobody believe it, they all in denial. Ay, back with a vengeance, back on the grinds, back to the business. Ay, God is my witness, they watching my moves like shows they binging.
Devonta headed for the end zone.
You know, it's important not to forget what Devonta Smith did last season and really throughout his entire career in college. We're going to talk about some numbers that may have raised some eyebrows as it relates to Smith, as we're just now 8 days away from the NFL draft, and these things kind of matter at this point. Also coming up later on NFL Live, the reason why someone here is a little concerned about adding OBJ back into the Browns offense. Plus, we are asking some burning questions of Mel Kiper Jr. today. He's here with us all show long. We're going to be putting the pressure on Mel. We got Ryan Clark, we got Dan Orlovsky. Guys, let's get to the news of the day. And we've entered this draft phrase that I was talking about, where all we do is talk about the leaks from the medical checks in Indy. You can see this here. The scale is rising up. Oh, now we reach 166 for Devonta Smith. So the Heisman winner apparently weighs in at 166. Now, no one thought by any means that he was big. No one thought he would be at 180 or something, but maybe 170, 175 felt like an expected range. So now you wonder, could this deter a team from selecting him early next week? Surely they're also considering his 345 yards, 6 touchdowns in the college football playoff alone. But over the last 10 drafts, there have been 38 wide receivers selected in the first round. Of those 38, only one weighed fewer than 170 pounds. That was Marquise Brown out of Oklahoma in 2019. He was selected 25th overall by the Ravens. The Heisman Trophy winner will look to join Brown with a first-round selection next Thursday. So, Ryan, you were a DB in the NFL. Have you ever covered a 166-pound receiver?
Absolutely not. I did chase some people's kids around our locker rooms on walkthrough Saturdays, though, and it felt like they were about the same size, and I couldn't catch them either. Listen, I've known Devonta for a long time. Obviously, being from Louisiana, this is a player that has been talked about around this city in Baton Rouge forever. And he's always been slim. I mean, it's kind of like watching Kevin Durant hoop, right? You know that this guy is smaller, but he understands how to use his body. If you see him get off of press coverage, if you see the way he uses space, the way he uses stems and straightens and head nods and routes, he understands how to get open. If you're a team, you're going to look at him and say, okay, how does his weight not necessarily affect him in the sense of being effective? How does it affect him as compared to the other players, to the Jalen Waddles, to the Jamar Chases? And that's how you're going to decide about whether or not you want to pick him and at what number. But Devonta Smith can play football. It's not his size that got him open. He is a route running specialist, and that will transfer to the NFL.
It's important to point out 15 years ago, this is a different conversation, okay? 15 years ago, because it's a different NFL. First of all, the rules are different, right? You can't really bang receivers more than 5 yards down the field. The second of all, you don't see receivers crossing the field and getting their heads taken off by DBs like RC. And the third, coaches are a lot smarter nowadays than they were, right? Understanding that, all right, Devonta Smith, I'll put him in the slot. I'll utilize some space. There's a little bit of a subtlety release-wise to create some matchups for him to make sure that you don't get a ton of hands at the line of scrimmage. Motion him down a little bit. Again, to make sure that defensive backs fall off him. There's another example of that prime route running by Devonta Smith that RC was referencing. So immediately when people hear 166, their minds are going to go to, well, how is he going to deal with press coverage at the NFL level? And I want everyone to see what he does really well to win against press. Now, first of all, coaches, understand, bottom of the screen, look at that space, and then this is Devonta Smith in the slot, okay? Now look at the space between that receiver and that defensive back. That's about 1.5 yards with Devonta Smith and his guy. Again, this is Devonta Smith in the slot. Putting him there creates about 2 yards, 2.5 yards of separation. Now, automatically, you've made sure that versus press man, which is what LSU was playing, single high safety, that you're going to give him a chance to not get hands on him at the line of scrimmage. That's step number one. Now let's watch number two, because this is what he does well, handling that press coverage. Close the space a little bit. You see kind of that stutter step right there? He's just closing the space. Now this defensive back's actually in a good position right now. He's outside leverage Devonta Smith. Devonta Smith right now should not win to any spot in this field that's outside of him, okay?
What number is
but that closing space is good by Devonta. Now this is what he does really well right here. You see that left arm that is extended and stabbing right there? Now, RC could tell you, he wins because he gets that left hand on the defensive back before the defensive back does. The DB wants to try and stab him and get him off balance. Well, Devonta does a good job of closing the space and getting that left arm stab. He is now one outside. Remember, I told you he shouldn't. So he is now one outside. And this is what it looks like when he wins the route. Now, right now, I freeze it. Mac Jones is making his throw. And this is really even, right? I can't sit here and tell you Devonta Smith has won on his route. Now, there's this little thing, and RC will tell you, it's called a chicken wing, okay, that receivers will use to get open versus tight coverage. Watch the chicken wing right there. That he just went from even to leaving. He went from even to leaving. I'm gone now because of the chicken wing. That's beating press man coverage, and obviously an easy throw for the quarterback. So Devonta Smith's 166 pounds. He's going to get pressed at the NFL. Coaches, it's on you. Motion him down a little bit, put him in a slot, stack him, and he's really good at beating that man coverage. The fundamental difference between Jamar Chase and Devonta Smith is I don't have to do that with Jamar. I do with Devonta Smith, but he can still be a phenomenal player because of it.
Let's get Mel in here on this. Mel, how much does his weight come into play when evaluating him for you?
Look, I call him the Splendid Splinter, too. I remember Ted Williams. I was a big baseball fan growing up, played the game, and he was always questioning whether he could be a power hitter. Yeah, he was a Splendid Splinter because he was thin, he was skinny, he used to squeeze a rubber ball to make his wrist stronger. Had 521 career home runs, hit 406 in 1941. Russell Wilson was too short. Aaron Donald didn't have the size. Nobody's going to care what Devonta Smith weighs once he's in the NFL. You only care about all this stuff pre-draft. Once they're in the league, nobody harps on it anymore. Nobody discusses it anymore. Devonta Smith played at this weight throughout his career. He's played against the best in the business, and he has done a great job. So I wouldn't doubt anything about Devonta Smith. Like I said, they doubted Ted Williams. He doubted himself when he could hit home runs, and he did. Hit 521 career home runs. So the Splendid Splinter 2 is Devonta Smith. You got a lot to live up to, Devonta, to be talked about in the same breath with the greatest hitter of all time, Ted Williams.
Yeah, I love the comparison and the nickname there. You know, one thing, guys, that I think factors in here is sometimes people think, all right, well, maybe in college he weighed a certain weight and he's going to put on weight at the NFL level. It's important to remember that Alabama's facilities, their weight room, their nutrition, everything they had is NFL level, if not maybe
way better than the league.
Right, exactly.
It's better.
Okay, so Ryan agrees. It's better than some NFL teams, or maybe all, depending on where you're at. So he's kind of where he's going to be. So this is it, right? We're going to be 166 pounds. Maybe we're going to get to 170, but that may not change at the next level. Mel, what do you think about that? You know, when you actually, no, we're actually going to ask you some more. We're actually going to play a game here. So this is this is called Ask Mel. Over the course of the show, we're going to pepper Mel with our questions about the upcoming draft. Dan, you're going to get the first one against our better judgment. We're going to let you go first. What do you have for Mel, Dan?
I got two for you. I'll ask you the first one right away. Sure. Kyle Pitts, you've been doing this for a long time. Where does he rank all time for tight ends with you?
Number one, and I go back to Kellen Winslow Sr. When I first started in this business, coming out of Missouri, had a tremendously high grade. Kellen Winslow Jr. did as well, Vernon Davis. But after all said and done, and the grades are finally in, they're written in pen now, they're etched in stone, Kyle Pitts is the highest rated tight end ever.
Okay, now let me do this to you. I'll change it up. Because this is what he's going to play essentially in the NFL. If I took tight end away from his name and put wide receiver next to it, in this class, where would he rank in this wide receiver class if I said he's a wide receiver?
Michael, I'm a receiving entity, Dano. So you talk about him as the number 2 player on the big board, ahead of the 3 big-time receivers in this draft, which are Devonta Smith and Jamar Chase and Jalen Waddle. So something he's the best player in this draft. I have him number 2 behind Trevor Lawrence. So to answer your question, he is the highest-rated receiving entity in this draft and the highest-rated tight end ever.
That's unbelievable. When you think about, I mean, just the statement there of all the players that Mel Kiper Jr. has evaluated over the years of his career, Kyle Pitts coming in at the top. All right, more to come on NFL Live. Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni would not name Jalen Hurts as the starter, but said there would be a competition instead. Why someone here